Hey guys, how's it going? Go see Rich here today, and today we're going to be installing some new brake lines on this Nissan 2023 Frontier with Kyle from Canadian Cruising again. Make sure you go and check out his channel, literally Canadian Cruising. He's got lots and lots of modifications we've done to this. We've had some fun, and we threw on a new diff cover from ARB. We threw on this really cool front bumper with winch, light bars. We did an S-Pod that's made by Oxbeam on this, so yeah, let's go ahead, jump into this. I'm going to put these lines down and then tell you the order that we're going to install them. All right, so for doing these brake lines, it's best to start on the driver's side because it is the shortest line, and then we need to go to the second shortest line, which is the passenger side. So we'll be doing the front first, and then you'll start again on the driver's side and go to the passenger side because the passenger rear corner will be the longest line. The reason why you do that is just for pressure reasons. When you press that brake pedal, since that line's shorter, the amount of fluid that needs to move, or the amount of volume of fluid that needs to move, is of course going to be under the most pressure at the front. So you want to start at the front or the shortest line and work your way back. And that's my theory, and that's what I'm sticking with. So anyways, first thing you want to do, if you have aftermarket rims, make sure that you have the tool to take the rim off, from which we do. If you don't have an impact, make sure that you grab your breaker bar and you loosen all the lugs before you lift it. It's also good if you have an impact, I'll be doing this in a second, to loosen them as well. Just crack them all loose and then we'll tighten them to spec at the very end. I usually say let's just lift it up by the diff and we'll throw it on a jack stand. That way you can do both fronts. This part will be tedious. Make sure it slides on nice. Make sure you're on reverse, and just like that. But I'm just going to reseat it because you also don't want the tire trying to come off the rotor yet and off the lugs, however you want to put it. There. So I'm actually going to say that I can lift this one and actually take mine off. I'm not too worried. These will come off like butter. They have not been over torqued. Some shops will torque these things all day long to like 200 foot-pounds, and then you'll have some poor guy pull out his off to the side of the road kit, and no, you're never going to get it off. For the front, I usually just bring it in and put it, let's see if it focuses, right there on the center brace. And I literally just jack it up. And if you go off of there, off the center, you can put two jack stands in, like so, right on the frame. Let's show you exact location, because somebody's gonna say, what's the exact location? Why didn't you show it? Well, here you go. Literally right in front of that plate. As you can see right there. Once you've lowered it, leave the jack in for good measure. This is just in case for some reason a jack stand fails, but whatever you do, you never, ever just have the jack holding it up. It's too easy, it's on wheels, anything can happen. Also, for good measure, I didn't mention this before, but always, before you go ahead and lift a vehicle, make sure the parking brake's on. You never know what's gonna happen. Again, if you're worried about them, make sure you don't leave these on the ground anywhere where you're gonna knock them around. Otherwise, you will have, if they're painted like this, your lugs, they will get scratched up if they get kicked. I always like to keep them out and out of the way. Obviously out because you need to use it. That's done. See? Stay. After you're done, it can be stuck. This one isn't perfect. If you live in a salty climate and it's stuck, just wiggle or kick the bottom of the tire, and then the top should kick out. Always be careful when lifting these off. Whatever you do, you don't want it to turn, because if your fingers are in a rim and it turns, I always go the farthest away from the caliper. Let's say you lift it from right here and the rim turns, it'll crush your fingers into the brake caliper and you will cry for days. Well, your fingers are immobile. Anyways, as you can see, we've got the caliper right there. We've got our brake line right here, and this is all we need to access. So just put your rim off to the side, never leave a rim standing up on end, because it will roll away at some point. To crack the fitting a little bit loose can be a little fun. 10 mil fits the best. You won't get a 3/8 on there, and you could try and get some actual proper brake line sockets, but I've never in my life needed one. I've been able to do it with a 10 mil or whatnot, but if yours is a little stuck, if all else fails, you can do it with a pair of channel locks or whatnot. Just grab the tip of it and just get that first crack, and that's it. And then after you're done, you'll be able to slide on a wrench like so, a 10 mil, and again, it goes towards the body. So just make sure that when you're doing this, go towards the body. Now that we've cracked that fitting loose, I'm gonna just tighten that down for a sec. We're gonna pop this clip out. Now, the best way to do that is usually with a pair of pliers. We just have to get around it from right here, grab it with a pair of pliers and do that. Just grab, wiggle, and it slides out, put it off to the side. From here, I'll let you choose. You can either A, take this line out the rest of the way, so it's hanging down and into here, and then we're gonna quickly pop off that banjo right here, and the line will be off and free. Get ready though, this is gonna drip and this is gonna drip. It's best to have everything ready to go, so you can tie that back in and lightly tie that back in with the new line. Note the orientation, that it's bending away from the caliper for when we set up our new one. Our new banjo is going to be a 14 for these particular brake lines. As you can see, that is way too big for these. So you're gonna need 12 millimeter. Throw the 12 on here. Make sure, for me, my ratchet is off, and it's gonna be a downward stroke, just like that. And as you can see, instant fluid. There are 2 copper washers, 1 on each side. This is important to note, so that way when you put the new one in, that you've pulled off. You do not want to accidentally double copper washer, otherwise you will cry. Go like this. All right, you can leave that. That's good news that the 1 copper washer fell off, and we'll let those kind of drain out like so. Now we should be able to almost bend that, but no. 10 millimeter. All we're gonna do is take this and take this off. As you can see, it should be pretty darn easy. These fittings don't take much. It's important to know so you don't go trying to strip it on later. Alright. Come on. Expect leakage from the top now. Alright, take your old brake line, give it a couple wiggles. If you have gravel or something, throw it behind you. Take new brake line, bring it up, and go like this. Do it by hand, don't just try to do anything too crazy to get it on. And then from here, we'll just take the 10 and tighten it up. Again, you're not going to tighten it all the way, just enough that we know that it's in. After we put it back with the clip, it'll be good because, yeah. Now, what some people will do is they'll also hold this end with a ratchet. You can if you want. I don't bother. There. Okay, that's tight enough for right now. Now, note the orientation. Remember, we need to go away from the caliper like that. But before we do, put this right here. Open your pack. You'll have 2 in each. You'll notice you have 4 copper washers. You only need 2. There's 2 for each side. I'm going to clean my fingers for a second. And you're going to do this. Grab this, 2 coppers. Come on, 1, 2. You might be wondering, well, why didn't you pull them out of the package first? Well, I'll tell you the truth. I never do that because one right here, then if you pull them out and they get dirt on them, then you get leak. So, English. There, as you can see, banjo, copper, tip, copper. Now that you've got the banjo copper, or banjo bolt copper, banjo fitting, and then another copper, go ahead, start tightening this on. Remember, bend away from the caliper. You can even leave it in its natural lovey-dovey fitting solution where it fits like this so you have the most room. Now that we've done that, give me 1 second, I'll set up the torque wrench and give you a torque value. Go ahead, set this on 110 inch-pounds. Right there. You can go as much as 140. As you can see, we've stopped leaking, but what we want to do is wipe it up, and then after we've wiped it up, monitor for any dripping. If you see any dripping, that copper, one of the coppers is not sitting right. It might have some debris on it. What you can always do too, to just make sure that you're having a very good seal against here, is some people will take a tiny bit of sandpaper and actually sand just around the edge of where the banjo is going to go. So that way, if there's any corrosion or buildup, it will not intervene. But in our case, I already looked and the coppers are literally actually a tiny bit smaller than the ones in here. So since it's a tiny bit smaller, I wasn't worried whatsoever. I think it's funny, the tip of the bolt though is larger on these. These are 14 on the new lines. The old line was literally 12. So now that we've got that, we'll get this clip installed and we can kind of play with this a little bit. We're going to try and turn this. Whatever you do, do not zap strap onto here. Too many people do that, and then as soon as you turn, it rips the fitting out. You don't want to do that. Don't zap strap it, leave it free. What's awesome with this, the worst case scenario, this will rub up on here, but there's no edge. The only part that has an edge is right here, so you want to be kind of careful with that. Another thing you can do is if you run your finger down this casting point and you feel any sharpness, take a file and just file it a little bit, just so that way if there's any burrs, like I can feel a burr right here, because what you don't want is this to rub against a burr and chafe. Some people will zap strap away. Do whatever you want to do, but I don't suggest actually zap strapping this line. You want it free. You want this to move and not be a limiting strap, because if it's a limiting strap, it's going to fail and you're going to lose braking. Sorry if you get sick from this. I'm trying to hold it as still as possible. You'll notice that there's a little notch there and a little notch there. You have to fit the nut in between the two notches, so make sure it's in that orientation between the two notches and it'll fit perfectly. From here, we can now put the clip in. Just like you took it out, slide this clip in and wiggle. You can try to do it with pliers or take a rubber mallet and just love tap. Just like that. You're like, why did you use a rubber mallet? Well, if you use the rubber mallet, then it doesn't bend. If you use the metal mallet, it's gonna bend it up to all heck. Look at that, new brake lines in. Get someone to watch as you turn the steering wheel, see if you're gonna have any rubbing points. If you are, just make sure it's nothing abrasive, and don't forget your suspension is going to be traveling up and down as you're driving down roads, so you just don't want anything to wreck it. Again, I've only found one burr on this. Like, the rest of this casting feels fine, but there's one burr right here. I'm going to go ahead and just take a file and file down this one burr. Go ahead, just feel it. If you feel a spot, like I said, just take a file. And you're probably laughing that I'm doing it so lightly. That's all it takes. No sharpness. Congratulations, you've done your first one. Remember, the two front ones are the short ones. The two long ones go in the rear, as you can see right there. So we'll show you one rear one and one front one. Again, after doing this one, go to the other front side, and then we'll show you this rear and then do the last rear. But we're also going to bleed them because we might as well. As you can see, our fluid level, it's actually not too bad right now. We lost a little bit, but not much. It's important to keep this topped up. If you want to, fill it up with a bit, because you are going to use a bit right now. So you can throw a tiny bit more of your .3 brake fluid in there, and then I'm going to show you how to preload the bottle and how you're going to go ahead and do this. Now you can actually bleed your brakes with somebody or without somebody else. I'll show you how to do it solo or whatever. Things to know about brake fluid: you cannot get water in it. So whatever you do, if you have a brake fluid bottle, never clean it with water, because if it's not dried out or there's water still in it, it will cause you a lot of issues and you'll probably hit a wall or someone else. So do not put water in your brake fluid ever. Next, I don't have a funnel on here, but let's see if I can do this. Perfect. All right, top it up just a little bit. Just like that. Now that we've gone ahead and done that, we're gonna go ahead and throw a little bit of brake fluid in here, about that much worth. And then this is gonna stay right side up. So that way when we crack that bleeder and it's pushing into here, it's gonna start to push fluid into here, and then we'll watch for any bubbles in that line coming up, which again, I'm gonna show you more of. We just wanna make sure that's cracked open, and I've gone over the warning stuff with you. If you have gloves, put on gloves if you want, blah, blah, blah. Pop open your driver's door and get ready to step on the brakes. Pop off the little rubber nipple right here. After you do so, put that there, squeeze in the white tip right here, and go ahead, come over here, and about that much fluid in there, right up to the warning label. From there, we're gonna crack this open. Once it's cracked open, we should see some fluid coming out, and then we're gonna go ahead and hit the brake pedal. Just towards yourself, as you can see, we've cracked this open, and now I can already see air bubbles popping inside there. We'll get Kyle to go ahead and press the brake pedal a couple times. Look at all that. Go again. One more time. And then 1 sec. See how there's no longer any air bubbles? Yeah, there's probably a couple in there. Half press it one more time. There we go. Go ahead, close it. If you take a look, there are no more air bubbles coming out. What you can do, we'll empty that out about halfway. As you can see, if we would have hit the brake pedal one more time, probably wouldn't have been full. You can get bigger bottles, by the way. This one handles about 4 or 5 presses full of fluid. So I'm gonna pour this out, and I'm gonna crack that one more time, get him to press it one more time, make sure that we're good, and then that's it. Your brakes are bled. So from there, as you can see, no air bubbles throughout that whole line. Go in there after you've gone ahead and again close the bleeder all the way. Do not go ham with it. Just go till it's tight. It's pretty easy. When you cracked it loose, you would have felt that it was not that bad. Anyways, after you've gone ahead, sealed up that bleeder, you can now go ahead and disconnect this bottle, go inside, press on the brakes, make sure nothing is leaking anywhere. Go over everything with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that the brake stiffness is the same. After you've done that, this side is done, and we'll go on to the next driver's tire. All right, for me, I have the Ooga Dooga cannon. So what does that mean? This thing already has a preset torque because it's built for putting on tires. Anyways, for you, I would probably do 100 foot-pounds to each lug and always go in the star pattern. What does that mean? Well, there, 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 there. Meaning always to the opposite side. Just remember which ones you went to, and that's about it. If you're wondering about length, as you can see, the stainless braided brake lines there are about 2 or 3 inches longer, so they are going to give you that clearance. Go ahead, smack some lumber under the 2 front tires now that we're done the fronts. The reason why is the parking brake should only really be affecting the rear, and because this vehicle is a selective 4-wheel drive, the front is usually the one that is not engaged. The rear is engaged, and you have to engage the front. So you could either A, engage 4-wheel drive, or B, just slap some lumber under the front, so that way it won't roll off and hurt you, or even worse. There's that beautiful ARB cover there. As you can see, we have space just enough under the tire. As long as you have just enough, that's what you want. Too high and you get to break your back trying to lift it up. So again, lift from the center of the diff and then just right on the tube, throw on both, and we'll go ahead, drop the jack so it's resting on the jack stands, and then have the jack just resting on the pumpkin. As you can see, this line is much longer. This is it right here. First thing we're going to do is grab our pliers and actually wiggle out the first clip, which is of course right here. After we wiggle out that clip, then this line should be loosey-goosey. That's where it ties in on this one, is up there. So we'll have to loosen that silver fitting, and again, just like we did before, pull out the clamp, take this one off, put the new line on. Just like we did before, try to get a good angle on this, wiggle it and slide it up. It'll actually be way easier to put on because you'll literally just loosen this, slide it out and out of the way just like that. Now if you want, you can actually get your new brake line, get it in position and slide that new clip on long before, or just do it at the end. I'd do it at the end. Crack that loose again with a pair of pliers, and then you can pull it off the rest of the way with a 10 mil, just like we did the fronts, unless you actually have the exact tool. Again, I tried a 10 mil, I tried a 3/8, I tried everything, and it's a very specific tool. Unfortunately, they couldn't have just made it easy because that's not car manufacturers. So again, cracked it loose, got that ready. Now from there, all I'm going to do is actually pull the one off this brake side first. What you can do is, if you have a water bottle or something, shove the tip of it in the water bottle, move it over to this side, so that way all the fluid's going in there until you get to this side, and then do a hot swap. It's going to be messy. Unfortunately, it's just how it is. You could put just a little bowl, if you have like an old butter container, have someone hold it right here and just drop it right onto the butter container. Whatever way you want to do it, just have it all ready to go, so that's the last one you have to deal with. So up here, just like you did in the front, go ahead, just lightly tighten that in, then love tap that clip in. Love tap the clip in down here. If you're having troubles getting it through, take the line, pull it forward, and slide the snout through, because you'll see it's thicker in one area. After you've done that, the orientation of the banjo is just like that. Slide the banjo. Remember, banjo bolt, copper, fitting, copper washer, tighten up, 110 inch-pounds. Bleeder's right here. Just slide it off like you did before and bleed it the exact same way. After you're done the driver's rear, go ahead and do the passenger's rear line, and you're done. You might be wondering, why does he always put the bottle up top? Gravity. See how these air bubbles are already pushing themselves naturally up? There's your length difference right there. As you can see, there is definitely 4 inches. I think the fronts are more like 3, maybe 2.5, 3 inches. So this side was a little bit more fun because of where they put the point where you have to tighten the line, which is, and loosen it, which is right here. So you do have to kind of stare up from over here to look at it. After you tighten this banjo down here, come up here, take a rag, lubricate a rag, and rub it on this brake line just like this, both sides. And then keep your nail here and pull on the line. If it pops out, it's going to be fun. You can get it back in, but you have to use like a pick and sink it. But once you do that, see how it's no longer sitting on the shock? You do not want it sitting on the shock or strut. And look at, now you actually have all that axis line on this side. So again, lubricate the line, especially right here. Whatever you got, dish soap, but I just use some brake fluid. Lubricate it, pull it. Once you pull on it, you'll get that extra and you'll get a nice loop. All right, well, we just capped the last line. One thing to remember, especially when bleeding the rears do not push as much fluid as the fronts, and you'll notice that by the time it gets back here, like the fronts, because they're so close to that master cylinder, the fluid just pours out, and the rears not so much, and that's okay. So once you've gone ahead and you've done this, we've already tightened them all up, felt the brakes, we've felt them, and they're nice and tight. From this point, if you want, you can put your truck into ACC and try it, or start it and try it. But for us, we're probably just going to slap the rims back on and make sure we're good, because that's it. Just follow your torque spec like I did with the fronts, and go ahead, hit it with a torque wrench if you want to be safe. 100 foot-pounds at least for the lugs on the truck, and you're good to go. Hope this helped you swap your brake lines on your Nissan Frontier 2023. Thanks again for watching. Press like if it helped you out, and subscribe for more. And remember, go check out Canadian Cruising's channel on this beautiful truck. He's done a lot to it. Everything from rooftop tent. We've put in the suspension in it. We've done the ARB rear cover. Just lots. Thanks again for watching.